I did record and then play. It's on. Yeah. 6 o'clock. City of Rhinelander Common Council meeting, Monday, September 14th, 2020, 6 p.m. The agenda's been posted. The media has been notified. Please call roll. Yep.
Barnett,
Here.
Larson,
Here.
Michalowski. Here. Kelly,
Here.
Anderson. Absent. Holt,
Here.
Daniel. Here. Rossing,
Here.
Mayor Frederickson.
Here. We do have quorum for doing city business. Please rise. Public comments. Is there anybody that would like to speak? We have a member or two of the public in here. All right. Anybody receive any from your constituents? No. All right, moving on. Mayor's comments. I've been asked to give a little more of a briefing of what's going on. The concept of briefing what's going on is pretty near impossible because it changed from minute to minute. I talked to the council president this morning, and half of what I told him is slightly inaccurate because of things that happened during the day. We did get our insurance RFP done, and I told him that would take a while. We did have a meeting, and we did not come to the consensus of all the materials we need for the next part. So it's really hard, but what I'm going to tell you is, as my comments are, the culture is changing here in City Hall and with the rest of us, where we can put out more work product, and we have confidence in our employees putting that out. That being the case, as we move through budget season, once again, dream big, think hard, long and hard as this stuff comes before you, and realize we set the course with the pace of how the city does business in the budget. So I guess what I'm telling you is that the challenges of making it through change are happening, and it's happening in a good way. We have extra cameras here. Don't pick your nose and think you're not on camera, because now there's 3 of them. But enjoy it. Enjoy the changes. Please stay informed, stay up on top of things. I'll reach out to myself or Zach when you have questions. The answers will be pretty immediate. You know, I'm never too far from 1 or 2 phones, and you can get those answers. But that's my mayor's comments. Number 6, meeting minutes. Consider the approval of meeting minutes from August 24th, 2020.
Daniel makes a motion to accept the meeting minutes from August 24th, 2020 as received.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Holt, second.
Holt, second. Go ahead and speak a little closer to the mic just because of the recording stuff.
Holt,
I know.
second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Meetings are in the record, the meeting minutes. Monthly reports from departments. Clerks, anything to add?
We are proceeding forward with elections. We have a huge number of absentee ballots right now. We also were held up for a little while. We were told not to send out absentee ballots, but I guess that's been resolved as of this evening with the Supreme Court. We do not have our absentee ballots yet. We are expecting them within the last couple of days of the week, so we are going to proceed with getting them going. It's going to be a huge task. Got quite a lot of them. And on we go with the election.
Ballot box.
Pardon me? Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yes, we have a ballot box. It's just been installed outside. I'm going to have to put some signage on it. So if you have constituents who are concerned about their ballots coming back by mail, please, by all means, tell them we have the ballot box, or they can hand deliver them to us in the clerk's office. We're happy to accept those. We will also all be voting at the brand-new Dome this year. Anybody in the city limits of Rhinelander? So if anybody asks about that too, where their polling place is, everyone will be in the Dome. And they have told me it will be finished by then.
Excellent. Queef Williams, I need EMS or fire, any additions? No, sir. Okay. Engineering? Finance? Fleet? Golf course? Inspections?
Nothing to add.
All right. Legal?
Nothing to add.
Museum? Actually, there might be some good stuff here real soon. Parks, buildings, and grounds. Jeremy's on vacation. Police?
Nothing to add.
Thank you. Streets?
Nothing to add.
Tech?
Nothing to add.
Water? Wastewater?
Water, wastewater.
All right. I'll accept the
I was just going to add, in the streets report is a snow removal, snow and ice control policy. It's my understanding that maybe the council, this hasn't been shared in the past, but the department has procedures as it relates to the upcoming snow removal season. And so if there's any questions about that, certainly direct the questions to Dan. But I think we went through and revised it. There weren't really a number of modifications, but really documenting things that didn't exist in terms of a policy. So hopefully, if your constituents have questions, I would direct them to this policy. We're going to get it up on the city's website too. So hopefully we don't have to deal with winter soon, but at least we've got a policy in place when those issues and questions arise as to how the city deals with the snow removal.
Also, for your benefit, when it comes to policies that the cities has, we will be following city policies as far as not working on private lands, not doing some of the things. We may have done it in the past. We will be following city policy at this point going forward. If we need to change the policy, we are the policymakers, and that's how it happens. But we will be looking at following policies as they are written at this point.
Motion to accept the reports from departments as presented.
Larson, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Reports are accepted. Reports from boards, commissions, and committees. Would you like to speak at all on this, Carrie? It was planning commission that.
We had our meeting and basically, we just,
Bring the microphone just a little bit closer.
we just went over, more planning on the zoning, is it the zoning ordinance?
Yep.
Yeah, that's what we pretty much did on planning.
Yep. And you received your map?
I did,
Yeah,
thank you.
excellent. I will accept the motion.
Motion to accept reports of boards, commissions, and committees as presented.
Rossing, second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. All right, to the thick part of our agenda. Introduction of new business. Consider the approval of a Class B beer liquor license to Nick's Hodag Lanes located at 1843 North Stevens Street. This is the bowling alley switched hands here recently. It was purchased.
I'll make a motion to approve Class B beer and liquor license to Nick's Hodag Lanes located at 1843 North Stevens Street.
Barnett, second.
We have a motion and a second. Terry, please.
Could I please ask that your approval on this be conditional? There's an extensive list of fire violations, and I would ask that your approval or the issuance of the license not be until those violations are corrected.
I will make a friendly amendment to my motion to make it contingent on all current violations of fire code being handled to the satisfaction of the fire chief.
Barnett, second.
Val, did you get that? All right, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah,
Tom?
Terry, is there any problem with them
He's-
completing this?
A little bit closer to the mic.
Is there any problem with them completing this list?
I wouldn't see any problem with them complete. I mean, they're the same violations we could write up anywhere. It's just that
Okay.
right now we've got the tools for enforcement.
Okay.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Consider approval of Billy Joe Town as the agent for Small Town LLC, Sunset Junction.
I'll make a motion to approve Billy Joe Town as agent for Small Town LLC Sunset Junction.
Larson, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Do you have any issues with this at all, Val, that you're aware of?
There are no issues as far as I'm aware of. She had changed from an individual ownership to an LLC, and therefore she needs an agent. So she is appointed as the agent.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Review the 2021 budget development timeline. This is in your packet, I think, page, is it 23? 12. Eileen?
I'm just wondering if this has changed from the meeting that we had on Wednesday. Has there been any changes to the timeline?
Yeah, there have been a few. In fact, there was another change since the printing of this in our packets. The first being economic development, if I'm not mistaken, will be on the 22nd. And then we did move some of the other items from the 6th, and I believe the 7th was blank before. Essentially, what we're contemplating is when we will be ready for some of the other pieces that we talked about the other night. So at this point, we don't have anything planned for the 6th or the 7th, but that very well could change. Perhaps it would be a discussion amongst the council if there's a desire to have more discussion. So I guess we'll play that by ear. We just had those dates set as placeholders. And I believe that's it.
I'll accept the motion.
I think you don't need any action on this.
No action? All right, excellent.
Just wanted to know if there was any feedback, I guess, for folks that were able to attend the first work session. The other piece to this, IT is not listed, but we would include that at a future meeting as well, depending on at what pace the consolidation project details come together. So any feedback or anything would be welcome at this time as well.
Any questions on that when it comes to discussing IT and the consolidation project? How they might differ and yet how they'll be financed when it comes to in the budget process versus maybe lending? Anybody have any questions on that? All right. Moving on. Work change directive number 30, $1,545 for additional grading at Shawnee Drive to improve drainage.
I'll make a motion to approve the work change directive number 30 for $1,545 for additional grading at Shawnee Drive to improve drainage.
Holt, second.
Discussion. Mark, would you like to chime in?
Yeah, this is just an additional work on Shawnee to see the next one, but we'll expand the limits of the.
That mic's not on.
Turn your mic on.
I'm getting used to his clicks now.
All right. With this change directive for Shawnee and the next one for Pueblo, we expanded the limits of construction to better address drainage issues and going on to a little further out from the road to make sure we're capturing all the water, all the surface water drainage.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Val, call roll.
Mikulowski,
Aye.
Daniel,
Aye.
Rossing,
Aye.
Kelly,
Aye.
Barnett,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Holt.
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion carries. Number E, work change directive number 31, $1,497 for additional grading along the west side of Pueblo Drive for improved drainage. I guess I'd ask why it's cheaper. I'm just kidding.
Took less time.
Yeah, okay.
I will make a motion to accept the work change order directive number 31 in the amount of $1,497 for additional upgrading along west side of Pueblo Drive to improve drainage.
Barnett, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Val, please call roll.
Daniel,
Aye.
Rossing,
Aye.
Kelly,
Aye.
Barnett,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Holt,
Aye.
Mikulowski.
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion carries. Work change order number 32 and $1,113 for miscellaneous T&M work. I'll accept the motion.
I will make a motion to accept work order change directive number 32 in the amount of $1,113 for miscellaneous D&M work.
Larson, second.
Now, I know this is in our packet, so we can read what it is, but just for the transparency of the people out there, go ahead and explain it to us, Mark.
This work change directive encompasses 3 different items.
This work change directive encompasses 3 different items. How's that? This work change directive has 3 different items on it. They're all low cost, so we just bundled them together. What you're seeing is removals for a valley gutter that we put in Pueblo Drive, which is the next work change directive. There's a manhole cover that we put in next to GM for their cleanouts, so access for the city getting at the cleanouts, and some additional grading on Pueblo Drive. There's an existing inlet. The contractors had it graded out. We took a closer look at it, thought we could do something different to make it work, so it was a couple $100 in grading there, so we paid them for that work. So this work change directive is for those 3 different items.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Val, please call roll.
Rossing,
Aye.
Kelly,
Aye.
Barnett,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Holt,
Aye.
Mikulowski,
Aye.
Daniel.
Aye.
And the motion carries. Actually, I guess I misspoke before. I was calling them work change orders, and they're actually work change directives. So the next part is work change directive number 33, $6,381.38 for installing concrete valley gutters across Pueblo Drive in North Stevens.
Barnett, I'll make a motion to accept the change directives number 33 for $6,381.38 for installing concrete valley gutter across Pueblo Drive at North Stevens Street.
Mikulowski, second.
There's a motion and a second. Go ahead, Mark.
So at Pueblo Drive on Stevens Street, the water flows into along the gutter and into the inlets. We want to make an additional improvement on Pueblo Drive because there's a lot of water that comes down there. We want to make sure that water is carried through Stevens Street into the appropriate inlets instead of going on Pueblo. So this addition, if you've been out there, you'll see concrete going through that intersection. That's a valley gutter. What that does is it helps water keep flowing down Stevens Street. We felt it was a value additive project, and the price is typical of what you'd see from a valley gutter.
Tom?
Can you maybe explain to the people watching what would happen if this work wasn't done? Like, what would the consequences be if that work wasn't done?
Oh, potentially what you would see is that water has no channel to get across Pueblo Drive. So you'd see water potentially backing up, going onto Pueblo Drive, or just backing up in that intersection. And we're not talking a foot or two, but we're talking a couple inches. And when you spread a couple inches of water across an intersection, it's impactful.
Yeah.
So we want to just keep that water flowing through there.
Thanks.
Val, please call roll.
Kelly,
Aye.
Barnett,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Holt,
Aye.
Mikulowski,
Aye.
Daniel,
Aye.
Rossing.
Aye.
All right, the ayes have it. The work change directive passes. Now, change order number 11, which incorporates the change directives 30 through 33, totals at $10,536.38.
Rossing motion to approve change order number 11, incorporating work change directives 30 to 33, $10,536.38.
Holt, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right. Val, please call roll.
Barnett,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Holt,
Aye.
Mikulowski,
Aye.
Daniel,
Aye.
Rossing,
Aye.
Kelly.
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion carries. Change order number 12, Lincoln Street Mill and Overlay for $194,120.83.
Rossing motion to approve change order number 12, Lincoln Street Mill and Overlay, $194,120.83.
Barnett.
Larson, second.
Money well
got me.
spent. I've
You
never
got me.
seen council want to spend money
Yeah.
so fast in my life.
It looks great.
Yeah. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I got one question on that.
Okay.
Actually, a comment for Mark. I liked the way, I know we had problems with the gutter part, so they went right over top of that, and that basically eliminated that problem with having to redo the gutter. What's the life expectancy of that? Just out of curiosity.
We wouldn't expect it to last long. So what's going to happen, and the city's very good about sealing that joint, say new curb, asphalt, they seal that joint. What you have right now is that the flow line is basically the joint for the asphalt and the concrete. I haven't discussed this with Dan, but I would anticipate they'd be sealing that, which is going to be very helpful for that concrete. But what will happen is water will get into that joint. The concrete is already deteriorated underneath that. So we would expect that concrete to continue deteriorating. I would expect you'd get about 5 years out of it, which is about what we're looking at for a potential large utility project for Lincoln.
Yep, thanks.
Any further discussion? Val, please call roll.
Larson,
Aye.
Holt,
Aye.
Mikulowski,
Aye.
Daniel,
Aye.
Rossing,
Aye.
Kelly,
Aye.
Barnett.
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion carries. All right, any person business we already took care of. Stevens Street pay application number 2. That's not working. Yeah, this is an item of business that will be handled soon also. Stevens Street pay application number 13 in the amount of $612,265.50 for work completed through August 28th, 2020.
I will make a motion for Stevens Street pay order application number 13 in the amount of $612,265.50 for work completed through August 28th, 2020.
Rossing, second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any questions? All right. You want to speak on it?
Sure. I'd just like to say what you're seeing on this pay request, you got $200,000 just in Lincoln Street on here. The majority of the work on Stevens Street getting caught up on quantities, some outstanding quantities with contractors. That's why you'll see some from Part 1A, Part 1B on there. And then surface work, finishing up concrete, finishing up asphalt and striping. So what we had hoped is this would be the last pay request for the year. I think Wendy was really excited to hear that. Unfortunately, I think we're going to have one more this year. We're going to need to finalize a couple more quantities, but the work is done. There's some restoration items. We're going to be doing a punch list walkthrough on Wednesday to wrap everything up for the year. What you'll see on the next pay request is, again, finalizing some quantities with the subs, make sure we have all the quantities correct going in the winter, and probably a reduction in retainage. So it'll be a fairly small pay application next time around. And I would think that'll be in a couple months.
One question for Mark. I noticed there was a section of asphalt that was closer to Highway 17 there. Looked like it was fixed or something. It was a big, kind of a berm on there. Is that, can you just tell me what that?
Next to the curb?
It was in the right lane, kind of, I don't know, across from, down towards GM and Toyota, towards that section of the street. It was a big chunk of asphalt that was a big long rectangle. It seemed like it was up higher and it was fixed or patched or something.
I'm not sure down there, but towards Pueblo and towards Iverson, we have a couple of those. Is that maybe what you're talking about? They're along the curb on the outside lanes? The width of the outside lane?
Maybe.
Those, what we put in there, we have a high point at Menominee. The low point is at Dwight. So we put those in there. They're going to get milled off in the spring. But what those do is transition that water up into the curb. So as the water's flowing down that long stretch, we wanted to make sure it wasn't all ending up at the intersection at Dwight. So we kick that water up into the gutter, and then it goes into the inlets. I believe that's what you're talking about,
Yeah,
Ryan.
I'm not
If
sure.
there's another patch up there, I'm unaware of it.
I'll have to check it out again.
Okay.
Thanks.
Just waving.
I'm just wondering if that's going to have an effect on plowing. Would it have any?
That would be a good question for Dan, but we talked through it. When they paved it, they started at 0 and worked their way up. You see a lot of wedging. We do some of that around manholes, or we have in places we'll do that. I don't anticipate it's going to be a big problem for the plows, but Dan would maybe have a better response for that. He may have an even better response come February.
Can we get Dan up here to speak on it?
Could you repeat that question, though? It's
he
hard for
was-
me to hear back there.
That's okay. He was just mentioning that the pavement is not, I'm assuming you're saying it's not quite flat?
Yeah, it didn't look flat. I drove there early this morning in the fog, and it looked like it was a section maybe at least 30 feet long by 10 wide that looked like it was patched or higher than the other part of the asphalt.
Okay.
And so my question is that going to affect plowing? I mean, is that going to get pulled up?
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll make our driver aware of that spot there, so he'll slow down. For one, he doesn't go through the windshield, and two, that he'll hit that at a slow pace where it won't tear it out. So we'll just have the driver kind of go through that route and make sure he knows where all those areas are, so he's aware of it when the snow comes. Kind of a safety thing.
Is it, I guess I have a question then to add on as we have discussion. So if that was to be removed during the winter by a plow, in the spring is when it melts, so you'd have the worry about the fluid running, the water running. Are there ways to patch it at that point so that it continues until we actually resurface it the whole way? And that's for Mark. Yeah.
I would not expect the plows to completely remove it. If they do hit it, they're probably going to be chipping away at some of the stone at the start of that ramp. But it's thin. It's not meant to stay there forever, and it may get chipped away a little bit, but the function will still be there. The plows will not remove the entire thing.
Excellent. Any other discussion? Val, please call roll.
Holt,
Aye.
Mikulowski,
Aye.
Daniel,
Aye.
Rossing,
Aye.
Kelly. Barnett,
Aye.
Larson.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Motion carries. Number K, consider approval of the Pioneer Park Historical Complex Engine Foundation Project General Concept for grant application to the Rhinelander Community Foundation and acceptance of funds to support the project.
I would gladly make a motion to approve the Pioneer Park Historical Complex Engine Foundation Project General Concept for grant applications to Rhinelander Community Foundation and acceptance of funds to support the project.
Holt, I will gladly second.
As far as discussion goes, I'd like to give a round of applause. They finished their fundraising on that part of the project today. So they even made it on time for council, which is pretty darn slick. Good job by those people that are responsible for that. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries. Consider approval of demolition of 658 Coolidge Street, 521 Gardner, and 21 North Oneida. Notice and corresponding resolution.
I will make a motion to approval of demolition of 658 Coolidge, 521 Gardner, and 21 North Oneida. Notice and corresponding resolution.
Barnett, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Terry, would you like to get up and speak? Because this is kind of momentous for, for your department.
No, I think it's just gonna take, Steve and I working together for that, because I'm not familiar with the most part, on how to proceed, so I think it'll just take Steve and I to move forward, but I thank you, because these are a long time coming, there's been a ton of complaints in our community about these, so thank you.
Does anybody have a historical reference to the last possible raising we've ever done?
Not my career,
Yeah, and how long have you been here?
29 years.
Thank you. So there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Consider the establishment of the Rhinelander School District Dome as a polling place for the future elections and memorandum of understanding for its use. That is in your packet, the memorandum for understanding.
Are we making a motion to approve, or are we simply, because it just says to consider?
Since the memorandum is in there, you can make a motion to approve, yes.
I will make a
Wow, I
motion
can
to approve
speak
the
in brief.
establishment of the Rhinelander School District Dome as a polling place for future elections.
We have a motion
Larson, second.
and a second.
May I add to that, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you. I got the signed memorandum back from the school district today, so they have signed it and agreed to it.
Yeah.
Great.
Just so you know, even as we agendize stuff, because the 2-week window is pretty small coming in or out, we're trying to get work product out. We agendize it as if it was going to be completed because we need every working moment to get there. Yet at the same time, if it doesn't make it, we just move it to the next one. And it could be a discussion item for this one, but this one is ready to roll. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Consideration and approval of an application to the Papoose Conservation Wildlife Foundation for a Children in Nature Pollinator Grant. I read this was fun.
I would like to make the motion to, where am I? To approve an application to Papoose Conservation Wildlife Foundation for a Children in Nature Pollinator Grant. Wow, that was a tongue twister.
Holt, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions or discussion?
I would just add on this, basically the city is acting as a fiscal agent, which means the city would be the recipient of the grant funds as we're a nonprofit / governmental entity. The resident that approached Alderperson Barnett and I on this discussion is going to write the grant, and then we're going to work through the process. There's no match requirement for the city as well.
Yeah, that Heather contacted me, and she was looking to really get something going for these pollinators. She invited me out to her house to look at her pollinating gardens that she has at her house. And it was really impressive, the amount of bees and pollinators that were around these little itty bitty tiny patches of what she had. And just imagine what could be done with bigger patches and pollinating, and the education that could go into it about how important bees are to our health and our lives. And I just thought it was so great, so that's why I jumped on it to get Zach involved, and really wanted the city to be involved with something so progressive and forward thinking.
I love it when things like this creep up on my agenda, and I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
Good stuff's happening. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries. Discuss a means for alderpersons to participate in council meetings remotely due to health reasons.
I would like to make a motion to discuss, do we have to even make a motion about it, or are we just discussing it?
We don't have to, it is a discussion, obviously.
well then,
It's more imminent than what it,
Scratch that.
well, and you can make a motion after some discussion if you
sure.
prefer.
Okay.
It should be agendized closer to that if
Right.
that's the case. The older person that's not available is the one that requested this, yet at the same time, that kind of
then-
gives the evidence of a possible necessity.
Right, well then, instead of making a motion, I will start the discussion with, I think that certain circumstances would be just fine for this kind of thing, provided elements were involved to ensure that there wasn't, other people in the room, that kind of thing, security stuff. I feel fully confident in Zoom meetings and stuff like that. They have a lot of policies and regulations and firewalls and all that to protect things. But I would not agree with having a Zoom meeting in closed session.
David?
Thank you. In the past, I've opposed this. Was part of the group that pushed for it for us to eliminate remote attendance. I do believe, though, that I do agree with Tom Barnett that for health-related reasons, I support moving forward with getting a method in place for participation, for representation, for health-related reasons. I still think that should be the line, though, is for health-related reasons. You have said many times in chambers that if it's important, you show up. And I firmly believe in that still. So, but I do think that we should come up with a policy for health-related reasons, but it should be contingent upon the need and not simply be taken advantage of simply because somebody doesn't want to be here.
I'm going to add to that also. I think the onus is upon the alderperson or the person not making the meeting to make the technology possibilities sound and available. One, they chose to represent their constituents. Number two, otherwise we'd be ordering computers again or whatever for people to do it. That's your choice to represent. The illness is the exception. We might have possibly a computer that can be lent out to that older person or the person who's sick, but I don't want it to be 7 people, because then you're talking about a significant expense for not being here. I agree also that health reasons are definitely viable reasons. We don't predict our future, and if we did, it would all be healthy. That being the case, for convenience, it's a whole different issue. David?
I would like to add something to add to what you just said, that I think that the policy should include a statement that quorum be necessary in person here? You're right, we don't want to get into a situation where you have half the council or more wanting to remote in, and this would account for somebody needing to, because of sickness or illness, surgery, especially when surgeries sometimes require quarantining these days. But that would prevent the potential for abuse if we have a quorum in person.
Yeah, I actually think given transparency and open records and open meetings laws, I don't know that it would be possible for a bunch of us to Zoom in. Tom?
Just as a side note, 8 years ago, I had 6 months of chemotherapy, and it was the most miserable time of my life, but I never missed a meeting. I was here for every meeting at City Hall, period.
And we thank you for your service.
Well,
We really
thank
do.
you.
I mean,
No, I was
it's
here.
truly, life is about showing up, but sometimes there are issues.
To your point that you made earlier, Dave and Chris, we did run for office to represent our constituents with the expectation that we would be here in chambers unless there was an extenuating circumstances such as a health reason. So I do know there's been talk of, well, what if I'm a snowbird? I don't think that's a reasonable, the expectation should be that if you run for office, you're here.
Okay. So, actually, I'd take a motion to direct staff to come up with a suitable, and I would really like council to put down their feelings in email to Zach with the ideas of what they would expect in that, to see what can be built as quick as possible for, that's the reason why I would like it done by email so it could be brought forth by the next council meeting, but acceptable to all of us. Fair enough? All right, moving on. Update on the emergency order pertaining to COVID-19 pandemic and the mass gatherings such as downtown trick-or-treat events. David, you asked for this to be on there?
Yeah, I asked for this to be on here. The response I got back was that we were going to have to wait for an update from the state to see what the state was going to be doing. I completely understand that. I was not pushing necessarily for any action, simply as something that needs to be discussed. It's coming up. We want to make sure that that we're being proactive, at least in the conversation around this.
God knows we got some.
Steve?
Yeah, just remember that the governor's current proclamation ends on September 23rd. So we presume, those of us that spend our lives looking at this issue, that between now and September 23rd, we're going to get some insight on what is going to be the trick-or-treat policy statement from Madison, Wisconsin. Then I think once we get that, we'll be able to see what, if anything, municipalities should be or could be doing. I talked to our legislative lobbyist for municipal government, and he suggested to me that there may be something even as strange as below Highway 10, you can do one thing, and above Highway 10, you can do something else. I mean, that's what the kind of discussions are that are going on in Madison right now. I personally have a feeling that it's going to be left up to the cities, but until we see that, I don't think we should jump the gun. one of the things that I appreciate from David and then also from our attorneys, that we have to be
I'm just going to hold it. One of the things I appreciate from David and from our attorney is that we will have to be able to adjust quickly, so have it in the forefront of your mind when it comes to these issues. We obviously have to respond to our constituents, but we need to do so with a diligent manner, and this, I appreciate you requesting this on the agenda for that site. Next, bills and claims.
I had one question.
Sorry, my bad.
Is Lloyd here? There you are. Has the police department had any thoughts on the downtown trick or treat this year at all?
Gotcha. Oh, we got it from Lloyd. Yeah, okay.
I also requested this to be on the agenda because of the just seeing the calendar, looking at it. Last year, especially with the downtown sponsored event, we had such a great. All right.
This is the one.
Number 3. Wow. Last year's event was so well attended by that we did with DRI and the businesses downtown. We had hundreds and hundreds of kids come, and we also did we invited the area fire departments to be involved to help secure the downtown area so there'd be no vehicle traffic. So it was an event that's coming up. That's why I requested to be on the agenda, so that it takes time and planning to do this event. So if we're going to push it off until the next council meeting, it just it just makes planning a little bit tougher. I know that other municipalities, I believe Annagle has canceled theirs, and they're doing a special event at the fairgrounds. So we're talking about it, but we don't really have an answer until we get guidance from this room.
Anybody want to dialogue back with the chief?
Well,
Tom?
should we maybe not be working alongside the school board? They may have some ideas on how to do the trick-or-treating.
The concept here, in even sitting in on a soccer meeting prior to it, is a little bit confusing because they didn't want the players to ride on a Suburban to a game, but a bus was fine. Now, if anybody could tell me that concept, and I'm not making fun of them, I'm just saying it's pretty darn confusing from what one town accepts to what another one does. If Annagle is not meeting downtown for trick-or-treating, but they're going to put them all in the fairgrounds, how is it different? So that being the concept, I know it puts extra stress on our chief as far as if we delay, but what it does is it gives us a chance to actually feel that out. COVID has been nothing but a chance to adjust and readjust and readjust and readjust. It kind of seems to be the set of the times right now. That's just personally my feel when it comes to it. I understand with that many kids downtown, you are definitely looking at a gathering that's by far larger than anywhere else. You know, when you have trick-or-treating through the city, they kind of have choices, they can move around. Downtown, it's almost a direct line the whole time. So I do understand the prudence to that issue. Carrie?
I guess I would like to know what DRI's position on this. Are the businesses even interested in having the kids come through their businesses?
Yeah.
So I guess I would like to kind of have an idea of what their thoughts are.
I have that information. They did send out a survey. They sent out 88 surveys to the businesses. They got, I think, 25 back, and it was 12 no and 11 yeses, and 2 not sure. So it's 50-50.
Yeah. Welcome to COVID 2020.
Yeah.
So I guess if you'd like to make a motion, I would take a motion now, otherwise.
Before somebody does that, if they want to, I think we should wait. I know it's taxing on our chief, but I think that if we could wait for a little bit of direction from the state, possibly, I think that would be the best option. I don't like to cancel things just because this is just what everybody in the nation has been doing. I'd like to see where things go in the next week or 10 days.
I agree.
I agree.
Okay. Excellent. moving on. Thank you, Chief. Bills and claims for September 2020 in the amount of $1,915,807.07.
I will make a motion to pay the bills in the amount of $1,915,807.07.
Mikulowski, second.
Any further discussion? Val, please call roll. Did those move around already or no? Oh.
Holt,
Aye.
Mikulowski,
Aye.
Daniel,
Aye.
Rossing,
Aye.
Kelly,
Aye.
Barnett,
Aye.
Larson.
Aye.
Motion carries. Bills will be paid. Discuss the reporting of open records request and records retention. This was brought to us by Gerald. I know this is a issue that we've put on our own radars as far as work staff in multiple ways, whether it be retention of somebody volunteering during the summer or interns as far as putting those records into possibilities. I don't know that it handles all the possibilities of what he's asking. You know, I don't, you know, those are hard to come by, but. Eileen?
I do like the word here, reporting on open records requests. I think if there was some sort of public posting of who's making the requests, how much it costs the city, that's a possibility. When somebody correct me if I'm wrong, when somebody
Anybody
makes
can
an
make
open
one.
records request, their request is also an open record, am I correct?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
So,
David.
to that end, if there was some way of us posting, I think there are sometimes frivolous open records requests, or maybe not frivolous, but requests that overstep, rather than asking for something specific, they're asking for something general. You know, instead of saying, I want to see emails pertaining to this topic, they're saying, I want to see all the emails from a particular council person or perhaps the mayor. And when a general request like that is made, that's a lot of man hours going through and redacting any personal information. So that costs the city money every time somebody makes that kind of request. And so my thought is, let's somehow let the public know who's requesting it and how much it costs and how much they were charged for it, because I know there is like a per copy fee, but I don't think we charge anything besides the copy fee, do we? No. So if we've got an open records request that costs the city, let's just ballpark it at $7,000 in legal fees. They pay 25 cents a copy and it costs them $300 for that final report.
I would like to add to that.
Yeah.
A part of that is some of the work's done previous anyway, before it ever gets to legal fees. So the man hours that we put into it prior to that are substantial also, but it's considered a part of our duties. Yet it keeps you from doing something different. So you're right, if we paid $100,000 in record request fees, we could have got another road done. I'm pretty
Right.
sure the taxpayers would not be happy with that.
Yeah, I don't see an issue of being as transparent as possible. And with that transparency comes, you know, letting the public know who's filing requests, who's doing, you know, requesting this, requesting that. I mean, it's all public consumption. So, I have no, I agree with Eileen. Let's, you know, give the public as much information as humanly possible, because this is their taxpayer money.
Steve's grimacing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, number one, the request is definitely public record. There's no question about that. But every public record we don't bring to the council. We wouldn't, and the meetings would last for weeks. The other aspect of that is I'm thinking through this, what we should do is we should have a open discussion at a council meeting of what, number one, are the rules with regard to open records requests. so that you're all cognizant of what we or I have to do when an open records request in, what the city clerk has to do. That's one thing you should really be cognizant of. Yes, I mean, the latest one is we received was for over 10,000 pages of documents. That's just a rough guess. That would literally take me to go through, because it definitely would have to be gone through for redaction purposes. It would take me a month. I mean, it would take me a good 20 to 30 hours to go through it all. Because I just did one with 1,000 pages, and that took me 8 hours, I think it was, or 9 hours. And that was a lot of repetitive stuff, and this would be no repetitive stuff. But you also have to understand the law allows us to limit requests. So we can respond to certain requests by saying, this is too general, make it more specific. We just did that to one that we had received saying, we're not going to respond to this because it doesn't fit within the four corners of the law, and unless you make it more specific, we're not going to do it. The other concern that you all should be aware of, since this is a topic, is you definitely need to develop a policy and procedure, because we still have a lot of records that have been, the thing I can say that makes this so polite is it's before my time, it's before Zach's time, and I think it's before the mayor's time, but they've just been dumped in the basement without any rhyme or reason in many cases, and it would take literally a full-time employee probably 3 to 4 months to go through and try to put that in the record system. And that's not untrue of any other organization, but in the city of Rhinelander, that's been one of our bigger problems, is there isn't a records retention policy and a records retention filing system that is categorized. So that's one of our problems too when you're talking about that. But so far, a lot of the people making requests have been reasonable. In other words, when we go back to them and say, this is too broad, they'll say, well, here's what I'm looking for. Then, well, here's what you should ask for then. So I don't want the public that are watching or listening to this to think that somehow we're not in favor of transparency or openness. It's just that if you want something and you have a specific thing in mind, for gosh sakes, ask for it, so we don't have to spend the rest of our life. I mean, if you want to know, how much the city attorney got paid for showing up at a meeting, ask for the record that says how much the city attorney got paid for showing up at a meeting. Don't say, I want to see all the records regarding the city attorney. Because that's the kind of thing that takes us forever to work through. And that's just, I mean, if you look at the history of the open records law in the state of Wisconsin, it was never intended to be a carte blanche, I want to own every city record. It was intended to keep government from hiding or protecting certain information for various and sundry reasons. So it's not a witch hunt statute. It's really a statute that was there for a purpose. And that's what we have been trying to do. At least my response and my firm has worked on this to try to narrow some of these open records requests. The other problem is it's election time. And I'm sorry, you make an open records request now and it's extensive, don't expect to see it till January or February. And I think it's interesting to know that an open records request was made of the governor's office, for example, and it was made 2 weeks, 3 weeks after he was in office, and it still hasn't been filled. So I mean, it's a very variable statute and a very variable situation. But I want the people of Rhinelander to know, despite what may be the word on the street, is we take them all seriously and we work hard at them. And I thank Tara, who has done a wonderful job with the electronic records. Those are not as hard, it's the paper ones that could be taken forever. And when people request personal things, then you got to go through them. But I want to use this opportunity, Mr. Mayor, and I want to say, it's one of the reasons too, I tell you, think twice when you use your phones for text messages and emails and stuff about city government and city activities, because if you send something, it really means I got to go through your phone and look at everyone. And I really don't want to read your personal phone information and stuff. But you have to be able to do that because we have to certify to the person who's made the request that we looked and we couldn't find, or here's the ones we could find. So even though you may request only 3 or 4 things, sometimes we have to go through, months of text messages.
A quick example of that is somebody asked me for the correspondence on well 8 closing down. It was 504 documents. And then when we collected them, didn't want to pay for them. So there was a fair amount of wasted time there. They don't understand. If I talk to Zach 5 times a day, I might talk to him 20 times a day. It's hard to gather that information that all goes into one decision. And then to broaden it, it gets crazy, impossible. Tom?
I understand what Steve is saying, and I can't obviously speak for Eileen, but myself, it's not a matter of limiting transparency, it's a matter of even more transparency, at least where I'm coming from. Even if it's just something that you can look up on the website, of who's requesting records requests, that kind of thing. And I just think that's more transparency, not to say that people shouldn't be requesting records. They should be. They should be knowing exactly what their government is doing. But I think in full transparency, everything should be out there for public consumption. If one thing is out there for public consumption, everything should be.
That, and they should understand too, though, that government doesn't happen if you guys don't approve it.
Right.
The rest of it's search, work product to get it to the point where it gets approved. I mean, we're pretty transparent here. I think, how many watchers do we have right now? Jim, how many watchers? 60? No, 100. 10. Hey, Monday Night Football's back, people. This is excellent. We have bored them to death.
But they can always go back and watch it later. So.
Correct.
They can go back and watch.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Oh, 25 now. Smart off again. It'll be up to 50 in no time.
Packers are losing, I guess.
Yeah.
Either that or it's halftime.
All right. Sorry. Moving on.
They won.
So policy-wise, we need to concept and clean that up, though, too. So if you're wondering which way we can direct policy, you can always contact myself or Zach as far as that goes. We'll start directing it that way. Once again, it's one of a list of issues that are huge, but at the same time, it is something we need to work on. S, consider appointment of Alderman Holt to the Downtown Works.
I would like to make a motion to appoint Alderperson Holt to the Downtown Works.
Larson, second.
It's actually my appointment, but that's okay. You can still accept
sorry.
it. You know what?
I'm still learning, man.
No, it's perfectly fine. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. For the parliamentarian, is that okay that we do it that way?
The motion should reflect that it was to approve the mayor's,
Yeah, that's what I meant.
and you do have that right.
Yeah, all right. All right, moving on. Discuss procedures for extension of water services to requesting parties. Zach, I'll let you talk about this.
It seems to be the season to request water utility hookups in the city. I understand it's been some time since we've had a number of requests, and it seems like the last 2 or 3 weeks we've had a number of requests. Essentially, the city has a process where somebody that is not currently a water utility customer would file a request with the water utility office. And the procedure would be, we're going to check to see if we've got utilities in the vicinity. The other piece is the city's ordinance requires that they become, or that they be in the city's corporate limits. And a number of these requests have fallen outside the city's corporate limits in neighboring townships. So aside from one exception, which I'll note that the exception was made at some point in some past by a council at the time to extend water services outside the city's corporate limits. And at that time, it's very common that municipalities that do this, and it's very limited, very much an exception, that there would be some additional charge, a rate for those that are not city connected to the city's corporate limits. So essentially, we wanted to raise your awareness to this issue. We're going to have them fill out their request, but I will also make sure that I highlight that state law is pretty clear that generally municipalities have a process in which that non-jurisdictional property owners or residents can request or petition the city for annexation. So that would be the first and primary path at which they can take to become eligible to receive city water or sewer or a combination of both. The other point is potentially for the city and a neighboring township to develop and to negotiate a intergovernmental agreement. And that would set forth terms such perhaps like a boundary amendment or boundary agreement, terms of which how and whereby they might connect to the city and what fees they might pay. But at the end of the day, there are a number of these that are out there, and Steve may want to weigh in. But essentially, we're bringing your attention to this matter, and we'd like to establish some review and revise the procedures and protocols. We're going to make them aware of these procedures as it relates to annexation. But ultimately, the request may become before the council for the annexation. So, Steve, I don't know if you've got anything further to add.
No, that's pretty much what you and I talked about, is that to extend municipal services outside of the city limits, you're either going to need the property to annex into the city, or you're going to need to have what's called an intergovernmental agreement, where the governmental entity would, so let's pick the town of Crescent, where the town of Crescent would enter into an agreement with the city of Rhinelander that would accommodate that party, and that would of course mean that that party would be paying some fees and costs for doing that, but the town of Crescent, which would have the responsibility, would also have to agree. Otherwise, we really cannot enter somebody else's territory and put laterals and because we don't have easements to do that, nor do we want to provide services when we utilize the city's money to provide services to non-city residents. How it was done in the past, I don't know, but I've come to have been told that it does exist, and frankly, it really shouldn't have been done, but it's been done. But if we're going to go forward correctly, we're going to do it either through an intergovernmental ruling of some type, some kind of an agreement, or else it's going to have to be annexation. I think that should be your policy. If you want to try some other policy, you can run it by me and I can try to find legality for it, but that's what I would recommend.
I'd like to add in the mayor's direction of what I would...
It's all right, you turned it off.
I turned it back on, no.
Oh.
But what I'd like to add as the mayor's direction is, one, what we've done in the past is not necessarily what we're going to do now. We're going to follow policy, and we're going to follow the directive of what's happening. That being the case, water obviously is an expensive issue, as we turned off 2 wells. But I can tell you right now, in the state of Wisconsin, we're the only city that can prove we have water that's clean from PFAS, because we turned them off and we tested them. That being the case, is it a valuable commodity? Well, if safety is a commodity, then yes. Yet at the same time, it's something that we've in the past have somewhat handed out or extended out, just with open arms, and that's not really feasible. At this point, it's expensive to have clean water.
Yeah, I agree. It's expensive to get clean water and to get rid of water through a sewer system, and annexation and a tax base, taxable property for the city is important.
All right, so we'll further that issue here in the near future. More proposals will come forward. Once again, if you could email Zach or myself if you have ideas, feelings, thoughts on that, that's great, because it can be wrapped into the work product before it comes back to you. 10, introduction of unfinished business, discussion of the administrator search. 2 weeks ago, I sent out the job description that was currently on hand. Then at that meeting also, Steve pointed out there were some discrepancies between the legal, or our ordinance written, and the administrator search. I did not get any correspondence back from council as far as what they thought of the job description as far as that goes. I'm going to ask Steve to extend on what those differences are now, and then I'm going to leave it open for another week, at least till Friday, for council to chime in with job descriptions if there's parts that they don't like, if you cross-reference them with other areas. That way it's not just us writing something to later on have people go, that's not what I wanted. But anyway, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, the job description materials you sent out were a comprehensive list of duties and responsibilities, but they didn't tie into the exact 2.01, I think it's 2.3, which is the definition of the city administrator. Now, I did do a comparison, and interestingly enough, even though written in a little bit different style, the vast majority of the things that are in the last time's job description actually are in the statute, or the ordinance itself. So it's really, the only discrepancies that I think I would point out are the responsibilities to the mayor and the responsibilities to the council. I think that you all should take a look at the responsibilities of the city administrator in his or her role to you as councilmen. The one thing that I will tell you is if you look at the contract you had with the last city administrator, there were things in that contract that actually were not consistent with what the ordinance said. In other words, there were more latitude and powers given to the city administrator than actually fell under the terms of the ordinance. Now, were they inconsistent? I would say not really, but they were probably more expansive than what's in the ordinance. So that's the kind of stuff that you have to keep in mind. If you want to change, limit, or expand, then you're going to have to change the ordinance, because right now the ordinance is extremely extensive, and it lays out, I think I counted like 17 or 18 specific powers of the administrator. But some of them may be inconsistent with other personnel policies in the city. I did do a check, because one of the ones that concerned me is you're looking at a human resources person, I don't know exactly the title, and yet throughout the document the city administrator is responsible for human resources, if you read through it. You also have a position called treasurer finance director. If you read through the description of the city administrator seems to have near veto power over the treasurer and the city financial director. So those are the kind of things you should think about when you look to what you want. And that's why I told the mayor that I really thought it would be important for the council to clearly look at those topics so that they have a clear understanding of what you say to someone. Because I will tell you, anybody that would apply for this job is going to go right to your statute, your ordinances. They're going to read your ordinances, because that's where they're going to look at where their power, where their responsibilities would come. And it's not going to be what you tell them during an interview. That doesn't control. What's in your ordinance is what's going to control. So keep that in mind when you do go through this process.
So once again, I'd ask the council to do due diligence by the end of the week, and definitely email thoughts, observations. I wouldn't want anybody to even grasp that I want any more responsibility than what I have right now, or what's really put in our ordinances for myself as mayor. That being the case, when it comes to the job description and giving that as a false pretense to the next administrator or anything else, I'd like this to be a joint event with that. So once again, when I send out emails, please respond to them. I know Tom Kelly requested that he received all the ones of our qualities and our qualifications that were asked. Yet at the same time, I wasn't recipient of all of them, you know, so hopefully everybody understands that work product you get back is directly related to what you put in as council, and that's just a part of it. So that's where we are right now. Any
Can I say
questions?
one more thing? The other thing I want you to think about is residency requirement, that's not in there. Think about whether you want certain educational requirements, because you have a list that was in the list that was given to you by the mayor that talked about what kind of degree the person should have, what kind of background they should have. You should be thinking about those things, and the things that I and the administrators that I've been part of the hiring of, a lot of the issues really go to things that deal with something like residency, something like availability, expectations as to comp time versus working time. Those are things that aren't in your ordinance, but you should think those things through before you start the interview process, because these administrators have gone through this before and they know what they want, so you ought to know what you want.
You're shaking your legs so much you're moving these. Tom?
Would it be prudent to maybe have a work session to discuss this?
I'd love to suggest that, of course, during budget season when we already have extra budget ones. And don't get me wrong,
Right.
the timeline as we move forward, one is just asking that there's going to be grace in that, because there's I take the next step in this and we discuss it. Well, it already goes back to you guys answering questions,
Right.
whether you like it or not. I mean, that's just the way it is,
Yeah.
because of what was there in the past, what we look forward to. So I'd love to suggest that. I would probably look for it as we definitely get through the budget. I know even when it came to this issue, it doesn't get as much attention as the budget at this point, because we need to solidify that. So I would look for a work session to be coming.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea too. Maybe we could even have it before a council meeting.
Yeah, I mean,
an hour before or something, so we can sit down and
I would rather see council work as a team on this than having a bunch of individual ideas kind of thrown into a pot and seeing what mixes together.
Excellent. All right. The review of the RFP for insurance services.
So there's two copies sitting on the council table tonight. This is the conclusion, or I should say near conclusion. There's about 5% of work that needs to be put into it yet, but so over the last couple of weeks, we pulled all the data sources. Essentially, as I shared previously, the plan is to post the RFP with the same coverage limits that the city currently receives, and then solicit interest. I think I've got a deadline of the 12th on there, so that'll give us the deadline of the October council meeting, which we've already got requests for folks to be able to give a presentation to the council on their proposals. So I just had a deadline of that day, so then they can present that evening to the council, or if for some reason we have to postpone, we certainly can do so. But the last bit of detail we need to put in there yet is our claims experience. And some of that information is confidential as it relates to workers' compensation, claims, that type of thing. But it's pretty much a straightforward RFP for insurance services, and we'll certainly have our current, or we expect our current carrier and then at least one other carrier to bid, actually maybe two more carriers to bid on it. So looking forward to seeing what the response is and then filling that information into our budget discussions as we go forward. Any questions for me? And there was some question about bringing it back before council, so I wanted to make sure that we had it on the agenda tonight. Not that we necessarily need the approval of anything, but it's a document that's available now.
No questions, we'll move further. Closed session, if necessary, to convene into closed session per Wisconsin State Statute 19.851E, deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties and investing in public funds or conducting other specified public business whenever a competitive or bargaining reason requires closed session. B will be the discussion of acquisition of property. C, discussion of legal counsel with the negotiation stats, possible action regarding completion of negotiation with the WPPA Local 38 on collective bargaining agreement.
I will make a motion to go into closed session for the above stated purpose.
There's a motion and a second. Val, please call roll. Is that right?
Yes. You're right.
Mikulowski,
Aye.
Daniel,
Aye.
Rossing,
Aye.
Kelly, Barnett,
Aye.
Larson, Holt.
Aye.
Ayes have it. We will move into closed session in exactly 2 minutes.
Yeah, it was a long agenda. Got through it. Like that, getting through stuff. Most things are pro forma.
That's why I'm like, is someone supposed to take
Tons of time.
There was like this long pause, I'm just like, so I wasn't sure what to do.
Nobody wants
Didn't mean to step on your shoes, Mayor. Yeah, I don't, I can take it. Yeah, I can take it. Yeah. No, I've already been.
It's always at the very last page.
quickly grab.
Recording is on, just so you're all aware. So we were back in open session. It was.
We need a microphone. Chris, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, please turn your mics on.
Oh, you good? That was a David Holt motion to return. Oh, okay, go. Excellent. So we are back in open session.
I'd like to make a motion. I'd make a motion to approve the negotiated WPPA Local 38 labor agreement, subject to WPPA 38 ratification.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it and the motion carries.
I just want everybody to realize that this is still a negotiation. I want everybody to realize this is still a negotiation until such time as there's ratification. So there won't be a release of the formal contract until there's ratification. And I'll notify the mayor or the mayor's assistant if there's a problem. But I hope that it'll all go through fine. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Future agenda items. They are listed as such. I will read them for the public's benefit. Review and approve the 2019 audit. B, approval of an agreement with Northwoods Connect for the use of a water tower. C, approval of AT&T lease agreement. D, review winter parking regulations. E, introduction of ordinance 2020-09, which is the capital asset policy. So those will be on their future agenda. Is there any other requests at this time?
Did you say these were being addressed?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. If that is it, we're adjourned.